And he just like the space outside and there's a bar out there. So you cover all that.
That's true. Yeah, you're at the mercy of the elements. When I do the site car, it's going to be very sure.
Was it indeed coming?
Was it right?
Yeah.
Up top right, that goes from the roll down to the retention pond. So,
He'll invest.
all right.
Yeah.
He's ready to wrap it up.
Calling our commission meeting to order on September 14th, 2022 at 5:31 p.m. Note for the agenda, we will be moving agenda item 8B, stormwater update, to agenda item number 15. That way we can have some interaction if needed with our Director of Public Works. So agenda item 8B will be moved to agenda item 15 regarding the stormwater report. This time we'll have our invocation and our pledge.
Heavenly Father, you command in 1 Timothy chapter 2 that we should pray and give thanks for our government officials and for those who have authority over us. Grant them and us the wisdom and the courage to know and do what is right and good and true. May they and we speak when it's time to speak and listen patiently and receptively when it's time to listen. May them and we always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice, by the spirit of love. I pray for wisdom and discernment for our city of commissioners and governing authorities. Protect, keep safe, and bless our police and our fire personnel, the city workers that make our city such a special place to live and to work and to play. I speak this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Remain standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chaplain Stevens. This time we'll have our public hearing. Public hearing beginning at 5:33. Tentative millage rate for the 2023 tax roll.
City of Lynn Haven, the rollback rate is 3.760. The percentage of increase over the rollback rate is 9.04. Millage rate to be levied, 4.1000. Resolution. A resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, adopting the tentative levying of ad valorem taxes for Bay County for fiscal year 2022-2023 and providing an effective date.
Thank you. This time we'll have public comment. All right, no public comment. Is there a motion to adopt resolution 2022-09-389 tentative millage rate?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Commissioner Aldridge, second by Commissioner Perno. City Manager, if you'll call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Wark,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. Tentative general fund and enterprise fund budget for fiscal year 2022-2023.
A resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, adopting the tentative budget for fiscal year 2022-2023 and providing an effective date.
All right, thank you. Any public comments? Is there a motion to adopt resolution 2022-09-390 for the tentative fiscal year 2023 general fund and enterprise fund budgets in the amount of $49,780,570 and the tentative fiscal year 2022 through 2023 disaster recovery budget in the amount of $21,330,184?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Aldridge, second by Commissioner Perno. City Manager, if you'll call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. Public hearing closed at 5:36 p.m. Public hearing open, 5:36 p.m. Tentative Community Redevelopment Agency budget for fiscal year 2022-2023.
A resolution of the City of Lynn Haven of Bay County, Florida, adopting the tentative Community Redevelopment Agency budget for fiscal year 2022-2023, providing for an effective date.
Any comments from the public? If no comments from the public, is there a motion to adopt resolution 2022-09-391, the tentative CRA budget for fiscal year 2022 to 2023?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ward, second by Commissioner Perno. City Manager, call the vote, please.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes. Motion passed. Public hearing closed at 5:36 p.m. This time we have our public commentary. Please remember to state your name, address for the record.
Johnny Bashirs, 811 Louisiana Avenue. Before we kick off into other stuff, I just wanted to note for the citizens to understand, there's going to be some discussion at the next commission pre-meeting about the status of the splash pads at A.L. Kensaw Park and at Kane Griffin possibly. If you have opinions on the splash pads, you need to get with your commissioners prior to that meeting and voice your concerns. That's all I would like to say, just so that people are aware that that discussion is upcoming. Thank you.
Thank you. Public commentary.
Zach Detweiler, 1600 Harvard Boulevard. Okay, so I was the one who presented you with all of the reports on your desks today. These reports are a compilation of basically social media responses after the flooding on 9/10 and 9/11 of this month, and also a comprehensive understanding of likely what caused that flooding, as well as some information and research on things that can be done to actually mitigate that type of flooding. So the rainfall that occurred on 9/10 and 9/11 was approximately combined about 6.5 inches. Average rate of rainfall is about 2.5 inches. That can be expected with most tropical storms. All engineered floodplains and flood management systems should be able to handle this type of flow. It did not handle it. Now, a lot of times what occurs is these engineering management plans have been put in place 30, 40 years ago and can't handle multiple different events that occur. Obviously, development is one of them, but some of the other major events that occurred in this time frame was Hurricane Michael. That's significant because Lynn Haven used to be a canopy city. It is no longer a canopy city. One of the major things that the U.S. Forestry Department talks about all the time is the impact of canopies on flood system management. Over the past 4 years, we lost 72% of our canopy to Hurricane Michael in this jurisdiction and another 350 plus acres to development. What that does is it takes the slowing effect of rain falling on canopies and it increases it. It increases the volume, it increases the flow rate, and it reduces locations for evaporation. Why this is significant? Well, in the city of Lynn Haven, we have experienced a lot of development, both with 390 and with a lot of other development projects. These development projects have no requirements for canopy replacement. They rarely follow ordinances when it comes to drain management, both inside the jurisdiction and outside the jurisdiction. And the city rarely communicates with the county, FDOT, and other sources when it comes to actually designing and developing current and future floodplain management. So really what I wanted to get across with this, and I'm sure a lot of the citizens are going to discuss because most of their homes are located within this packet, is the fact that if a comprehensive plan is not created for the next 25 years on floodplain management, all the money that you are going to spend with these millage rates aren't going to matter. You can put all the drains you want in on 12th, you can put all the drains you want in on 24th, or on 14th, or any of the other streets, and it's not going to matter. There's two choke points. There's Betty Bayou, and there's Lynn Haven Bayou. Both of those represent about 75% of your outflow rates. They are blocked, they are clogged, and they have overcapacity now because of both development and because of the recent work by FDOT. You can read through the report. If you have questions, let me know, but that is
Thank you,
the
sir.
gist of it.
Additional public commentary? Yes, Ms. Parker.
You're done, sir.
Good evening, Jerry Parker, Rhett Place. First, I want to thank you for the budget meeting that was very informative. If I have any additional questions, I'll forward them appropriately. I want to discuss what was said at the last commission meeting, particularly Brandon's comments. Principled opposition is required. Not only is it required, it's needed. Okay, we're gonna have disagreements. That's gonna happen. It's gonna get heated sometimes. That's gonna happen. I don't think anybody was out of place. That's my personal opinion. So we can't play the victim card here. Nobody's a victim here. Speaking on that, Mayor, I'm gonna say this. You can't play the victim when you're the cause of the problem. I think you know what I'm talking about.
I don't, but okay.
In reference to your conversation with Bernie Thompson.
Okay.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. I'll leave you with grace with that. The other thing is, the victim card's being played and then the religion card's being played. And what I mean by that is when you throw the religion card, you're insinuating that you're better than somebody else. There's nobody in this room that's better than anyone. And if there's anything that I know of, is God knows when you lie, when you cheat, when you cohort to defraud, when you don't speak up, when you see wrongdoing, all those things God sees. And I would venture to say that there are people in this very room today that saw wrongdoing that did not speak up. And as much as we want to put away all the Margot Anderson stuff, it's going to continue. It's going to be a stain on this city until it's resolved. Until it's resolved. And that's basically what I wanted to say. We got to quit throwing these cards. The race card's been thrown, the victim card's been thrown, the religion card's been thrown. Nobody here is better than anybody else. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public commentary?
Steve Novikowski, 1231 Dundee Lane, Lynn Haven. First of all, thank you, Commissioner and Mayor and Ms. Vicky. Although everybody has been very supportive about us in Mowat Highlands with the new construction that has been going on with Andrews, and it's nice that people come out, check things out. There's been catastrophic failures in the stormwater and also in the discharge. And part of that is a year ago to the date when we received a new plan of how they were going to fix it, I felt that it was inadequate. I didn't feel that it could keep up with the rain flow. And as we just seen over the weekend, it did. It did exactly the same thing as it did prior to that. And if you really examine this closely, it's not up to code. It's not done the way that they said it was going to be done on several different things. The other thing about it is if you read some of this, the stormwater collection treatment system is to be privately owned. So that's within that property. But what's behind my property is on the public easement, which is city owned. So now a flawed or inadequate structure that was built, and I think that I've had many people come take a look at it and see some of the things that they've done, it is your liability. It's half filled right now with silt from the last storm that we had. And that's after it being cleaned 6 or 7 months ago. So how can we keep up with all the other failing? And although everybody likes to point the finger and say, well, it's because of the old infrastructure that we have. But this is brand new infrastructure. And it really falls, in my opinion, on Panhandle Engineering and the group that designed this, that was inadequate from the very start. And although that they can sit there and put it on paper and tell you what rainfall and watershed is going to be, it didn't take into account existing water flow that was going into the wetlands. I think that we really need to be able to hire somebody who can take a look at water flow. I mean, unfortunately, at this point, I think the Panhandle should pay for that, for us to be able to fix this and resolve this once and for all, because we need to move forward. We can't keep going back and fixing other people's mistakes. And had we looked at that, at things like that, when we were designing things in the city and saying we want to make it so that it's going to be working 20 years from now, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. And I opposed the stormwater tax. I support it now. I think it's a good thing. I think that we're going to do great things with it. But I don't think that we can ever get ahead of ourselves if we're going to allow a large engineering team to be able to come up with something that's inadequate and just kind of allow them to pass the buck when we talk about things and they say, well, let's put a speed bump.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Why don't we have Ms. McElroy and then Mr. Scray?
First, I just have to say, Christy McElroy, Port St. Joe, Tallahassee, thank you. The two that just spoke about stormwater, wow, they hit it right on the head. Panhandle Engineering, Chris Forehand, he's supposed to be an expert in stormwater. Obviously, not so. I want to just make sure that the record reflects that this permit placard that I've talked about for over a month, it was neither stamped nor was it signed by Michael Gordon. This one as well was not signed nor was it stamped by Michael Gordon. Anyone saying any differently is not telling the truth. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Scray, and then Mr. Walker.
Ryan Scray, Missouri Avenue. There's a saying in my career field, which is government contracts, that poor planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. And in this case, poor planning does constitute an emergency on our part. Today during the budget hearing, it was specifically stated that the stormwater assessment cannot increase in the upcoming year because it was set in place in the trim notice and it can only be the same or decreased. And that notice went out before you guys vote on the stormwater assessment fee. So now we're delaying the increase, which Stantec very clearly indicated was needed, a whole nother year. So we're going to delay all these problems that everybody's going to talk about a whole nother year. Everything Zach talked about, a whole nother year. We can't pay for stormwater repairs with money from 50 years ago. We got to pay for it with money now. And that money has to be collected now from all of us. I live a block away from a natural creek that overflowed this weekend. I hardly use stormwater, but I'm up here telling you that I'm ready to pay more. I'm ready to pay the amount that Stantec originally said we should be paying. I'm also apparently in the wrong tier because whatever system you guys are using has me in tier 1. The city says, well, we just go off of what the assessment website says. And the Bay County Assessor's Office says, well, we can't fix it because it's the city that has to fix it. So my property is, my impervious surfaces are over 2,900. So somebody fix that so I can pay my fair share. There's a lot more properties like mine that are in the wrong tier. They're in tier 1 and they need to be in tier 2. probably talking $50,000 a year in missed stormwater assessment fees because properties are not being calculated. Mine specifically, it's not including my driveway, it's not including my back patio, it's not including my pool. That's all impervious surface. I mean, the pool, it collects water, so that's semantics. But the point is, by not budgeting for a stormwater assessment increase, we're now, whatever you guys vote on today can't even take effect for this coming year that we're about to collect for. It has to be pushed out even farther, which means we're pushing out all of these repairs, and we're gonna have more events like this weekend while we wait for funding to fix problems. I respect what Pat said about waiting for a few meetings ago about the economy and everything. Everybody's feeling it, but I really do think we're gambling on our future by waiting. And every time we wait, we're waiting to see what happens, and what's going to happen is more flooding and more people's houses getting destroyed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Walker?
Good evening. Happy Constitution Day. I'm glad it freed us up. Everybody's talking about storm. Years ago, we sat here and we discussed it. And for 20 years, we paid into stormwater. We got nothing out of it. It was pushed and shoved. The money was hidden in the general fund and it disappeared. Okay, we had meetings here and commissioners have agreed that we have to do something. Whether right or wrong, we have to do something. It was decided a long time ago that we would have events. They were considered 25-year events, 100-year events. Mr. Lynch said that there would never be more than one. A week after he said that, we had one. A week after that, we had another. It really buried us. You were informed. There are only 3 companies in the world that can deal with this situation. One of them is located in Holland. They're surrounded by water. They took care of it. The other is Galveston, Texas. They removed the whole city and lifted it up. They knew how to handle it. Corps of Engineers, Louisiana. They thought they had it, but Katrina took care of that. Now they've tried to do it. Nobody has been successful. You heard that. You can try. You just had a little rain yesterday. It almost brought us to the ground again. You could not use your main evacuation route out of this town. Okay. Yes, everybody's saying it. I think we better take a look at our program. The last meeting that you had from the company that took a look at this says that the program you have right now is not sustainable. Please, ladies, gentlemen, take a look at this program again. Your people are doing as hard as they can to try and solve it. I think we need a little more effort into this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jody Moore on Amherst Street. Just going along with what everybody has said. The bottom line is you can dig a bunch of ditches, but Lynn Haven is a swamp. So you're putting more building on top of just a swampy area. Everybody knows it. So, I mean, I don't know what the solution is. I don't think pumping stormwater into the bay is a good idea. The beach is looking at that, but you know, I don't know what the solution is, but maybe one of the companies Richard talked about could handle something like that. I also wanted to say on the way over here, I was running late and I tried to listen to the meeting on Facebook and it was not up and running. So I don't know if it is now, but for about 10 minutes it wasn't. So hopefully that'll get fixed and at least people can see the video. I just have a couple other things and not anything related to what people said. I've talked about the youth council that the mayor has started. And I think it's a good idea. I mean, it's a great idea to have kids learning about government, but we've talked about background checks. The last meeting, you told me that speakers did not have to have background checks, like the schools, and that's fine, but I'm not talking about the speakers. I was just thinking, look at what happened with the Boy Scouts, look at what's happened with the church, especially the Catholic Church. I think if you don't do background checks, I think the city is really setting itself up for, potential lawsuits in the future. And I don't understand why other committees have to have background checks, but this one doesn't have to have background checks for the people who are working with the kids on a regular basis. I just think that that's necessary, but you know what? I don't have a kid in the council, so that's for the parents to speak to. The other thing I wanted to bring up, I just wanted to know in your reports if you could talk about this commission has voted for the builder contractor committee, and also they voted for the citizen finance committee. So I wondered, I haven't heard anything else about that. This commission did vote for those things, so I just wanted to hear has anybody applied for those? Have they been formed? If you could, speak to that. And also, because what happens is when you vote for something, you need to follow through with it. And I've talked about this before. We had the Jazz Festival and we had the Hermit Crab Festival. Prior commissions voted for that, and you guys never voted it to not have them, and then we just don't have them. And I understand that, we had hurricane, we had COVID, but if you're not going to have these things, they were properly voted on. If you're not going to have something, you need to, vote to not have it, which I think those would actually be fun things to do. But anyway, thank you, and happy afternoon to everybody.
Thank you. Additional public commentary?
Hey, good afternoon. Corey Langford, 1112 Louisiana. I just kind of want to, I guess we're allowed to talk about the assessment now since it's still on the agenda. Is that we can comment? I didn't want to violate any rules. Okay, so I guess reference the stormwater assessment. I kind of mulled over this. I've talked with Commissioner Warwick and some other people about it quite a bit. And last year I was apprehensive about supporting it. But at the same time, I was like, man, I really think we need to fund this thing because we got to get this thing fixed. But I didn't like the way that we went about it, and I still don't. I 100% agree that we have to fund stormwater. We got to fix it. We got to throw money at it, whatever that means. But we got to do it the right way. I 100% fundamentally disagree with assessments. Period, dot, in a story. Okay, assessments are a backdoor way of an organization to obtain money from individuals without using the process that we have in place. We have a process in place. We all paid a fee. Those that have water meters paid a stormwater fee of some sort. That was reduced to zero, and then we went and passed the assessment. Okay, so here's kind of my idea of how I propose that we continue to fund this stormwater assessment, but we go back to doing it the right way. All right, we take however much money that we would normally have paid and we divide it up into 12, and that's what your fee is on your water bill every month. Okay, but what about those people that don't have water meters and vacant lots? Okay, well, there's a way to do that as well. I think, now I don't know, but there is a way to tax that individual through the ad valorem tax system on a vacant lot differently to compensate for that. Okay, so my point is that we need to get back to doing things the right way. I think what we did through the assessment last year, it seemed like it was what was easy, and what's easy is not always right, and what's right is not always easy. I would really love to see the funding still go to it, but let's get it back into the way that really we should be doing it. Because right now it's stormwater. 5 years from now, it might be a playground that we get an assessment for. 5 years after that, it might be something. Who knows? But the precedent has now been set. And the final thing, and I'll close with this, is I brought my bills here. I've got a house, all right, with non-permeable surface, roof, concrete, pool deck, all this stuff, okay? My stormwater assessment bill for my house property is $71.29. I got 2 vacant lots across the street. They're 50 by 150. It's literally nothing but grass and dirt. There is no impermeable surfaces over there. You know what my bill is for those 2 lots? $157.95 with 0 impermeable surfaces. My time go. So let's just get it right, the funding piece. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Additional public commentary? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Kevin Toller. I'm an ex-professional baseball player. Coached a little while at Gulf Coast, and we now have a baseball facility that we run over by the old airport.
Could you give us your address also, please?
I'm sorry?
Name and address.
I live up on Blue Water Drive,
Okay.
Deer Point Lake. As we're looking to potentially build a new facility, I spoke with Pat about the new baseball fields that are going in where the hurricane destroyed them. And just noticing, I just thought I'd bring it to your guys' attention. The fields are going to be 300 foot. That is half of 13U. So that size field, I don't know. I mean, I heard that the city was hoping that tournaments could come, some, revenue could be raised. And it's not going to happen with 300 foot fences, because up to 12U is 250 foot, half of 13U is 300 foot. At 14U, they go to high school fields. So tournaments won't be able to be played there. It'll be practice fields. Before you guys spend that kind of money, I just wanted to bring it to your attention that that size field's not going to work. Kind of all I had to say.
Thank you.
Linda Mishler, Hidden Valley Court. Mayor Nelson, Commissioners, City Manager Vicky, and Mr. Obos. First of all, I'd like to say that I am 100% in favor of the current assessment and any increase in assessment that this board decides to do at a later date. I am all for having this plan fully funded. I believe that Chris and his team are doing a great deal with the money that they have. And I'd love to see this fully funded, okay? When the trim notices were first issued this year, I began to look at a sampling of some of the notices and noticed some irregularities when they were trying to distinguish the properties between Tier 1 and Tier 2. And you've heard some comments here already today from some real-life people. I have several hundred other real-life people that have discrepancies between their Tier 1 and their Tier 2 distinctions, okay? Ms. Gaynor and Mr. Lightfoot were very helpful to me, answered a lot of my questions, and also provided me some additional information directly from Stantec. There were two distinct areas where I saw a methodology being used that produced unfair, unequitable, and assessments that potentially violated the resolution that you signed last year when you put this into effect. I would like to ask the commission to do a due diligence check on this tier system and the math that's being used and how they're assigning that. I am not talking about a full-scale audit that would cost thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm talking about an in-house review by an employee with a calculator who understands math. And address these issues so that everybody is paying what everybody is supposed to be paying. Now, I realize that this is complicated and I may not understand everything. However, I know that 2 + 2 does not equal 5. And it doesn't matter how many times you say it. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public commentary. All right. Thank you all for your comments. They will be duly noted. Mayor's report. Due to the extensiveness of our agenda, I'll keep it brief. First, I'll read the proclamation. Proclamation of the 235th anniversary of the United States Constitution and 246 years since the United States independence. Whereas the Constitution of the United States of America, the guardian of our liberties, embodies the principles of limited government in a republic dedicated to rule by law. And whereas September 17th, 2022 marks the 235th anniversary of the framing of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas It is the privilege and duty of the American people to commemorate this magnificent document and this memorable anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America with appropriate ceremonies and activities. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Jesse Nelson, by the virtue and authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Lynn Haven, on behalf of the city commission, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week, and urge all citizens to study the Constitution and reflect on the privilege of being an American with all the rights and responsibilities which that privilege involves, and to reaffirm the ideals that the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by diligently protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. In witness thereof, I do hereby set my hand and cause the seal of the city of Lynn Haven to be affixed on this 14th day of September 2022. Again, I'll keep my comments brief to address, I guess, some questions that were asked about the mayor's council. Actually, there is no one working with the mayor's council besides the mayor. So there's no adults that work with us on a regular basis. We have a guest speaker that comes in. Our last mayor's youth council, we went and attended a couple of committee meetings throughout the Bay County area. However, there's no one officially working with there's no group of adults that are working with the mayor's youth council right now as it relates to having background checks. Again, we do have guest speakers that come in to speak to the youth, but just following the school policy, they don't do the background checks when those guest speakers come in to speak to the youth, and those guest speakers are there with the youth for a temporary time frame. Regarding the financial review committee, that committee will convene after the adoption of our budget for the fiscal year 2022, 2023. And so that committee will meet after that time. As it relates to the construction board, that may be something that city manager or staff could address.
Yes. It's just a matter of setting up that first meeting with getting all of the 5 people that you guys approved together. So it's just a matter of first meeting, and we thought we'd wait till after the fiscal year and start anew. And that's what we're going to do there.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing it to our attention. We do get phone calls, or city manager and staff gets phone calls in office regarding the stormwater assessment. I think last year, the majority of the calls we got were saying that people were being charged too much. This year, we're getting calls saying that people are not being charged enough. So thank you for wanting to pay your share. I will follow up with city manager this week to come up with a resolution on how we can, or to see how we can resolve the issue of maybe doing some type of in-house, just inquiry on making sure that everyone's stormwater assessment is properly assessed. And so, commission, that's something that I'll do this week is follow with her and brainstorm and strategize, see what ideas her and city staff have about that regarding the stormwater assessment. A lot of that does fall back on property tax appraisal. However, some of their records aren't up to date a lot of times. So that's something that we do have to work with them on. That's what we ran into last year, that many people were calling in about their stormwater assessments, and it was something that had to be updated with the property tax appraiser. So if you've had additional things added to your home, if the property tax appraiser has not added that impervious surface to their image within the property tax appraiser's office, then they're not going to assess it properly. So that is something that I'll follow up with the city manager on before week's end to discuss what are some options that we have to just sort of do some fact checking on that, double checking on that as well. And again, with the stormwater assessment, I don't think any of us want to, I guess the adage that was used last year was keep kicking the can down the road, which is why we went against public opinion last year and implemented the stormwater assessment, because it is something that we definitely want to, get fixed for our citizens. However, just hearing so much pushback on the assessment throughout the year and just trying to make sure that we're being fair I think is one of the reasons we sort of just, this past year, I think is why the commission just sort of put a pause on raising the fee as Stantec had recommended, so that we could just really get a better idea of how to handle all of the properties that were being assessed, making sure that it's equitable and fair to everyone that's being assessed. As you mentioned, you know, you have this impervious surface that's less than what your actual vacant lot is. And so that was really part of the holdup on that. Certainly not that we want to push any projects further back. So very thankful for the effort and work that our grant writers and public works and just all of our city staff and those engineers have put in to get the grants to help carry that along for us while we're trying to figure out how to make sure we're being fair to everybody with that stormwater assessment. And so it is hard to decide how do you get the money from the citizens. I think one of the things we realized was that putting it on the bills, it wasn't bringing enough income in. And so we did use that assessment in order to try to do that. Although, as I encouraged you all last year, and thank you all for being patient with us. I think it was August of last year, after Tropical Storm Fred came in, we had an hour and a half conversation about stormwater and public commentary. So I'll never forget that day. And the very next day, I met with city manager and her staff to talk about stormwater and what we can do to resolve it. And so I think we're still playing catch up in some ways and being able to maintain some things. So some of the areas that had stormwater issues, maybe is something that we're still working on in regards to our master plan. Now, from my understanding, I think we only had 2 homes, and our goal is 0 homes. And so if somebody wants to know what is our goal is to make sure that we don't have any structural flooding in Lynn Haven. That's our goal. Now, certainly we don't want the water to sit in your yard, but hey, thank us for the free irrigation for that week, right? So we don't want the water sitting in the yard. We don't want the water sitting in the driveway. I don't like it in my house. However, our biggest priority after meeting with the stormwater team last year was to make sure that we could fix structural flooding, because it's devastating to have somebody come in and say, hey, I had water get in my home for the 4th time. And so that had really become our focus. And so we've actually adjusted what the stormwater master plan was to really focus on those areas that had structural flooding. And just so the community will know, hey, what is our focus with stormwater? Yes, we have a comprehensive plan for that. However, we're really focusing on the areas that have structural flooding, because we don't want water getting into anyone's home. We don't want you to have to drive through water. We don't want you to, have water up to your tires. That's not, fun either. We don't want you to have to, walk in your rain boots and all that kind of stuff. However, our focus is on structural flooding, not saying that we're neglecting anyone else, but that's our focus. And so if you do know someone that's having some issue with that, please let us know if there's an issue with that, because I know some people don't report it because they don't want it to go on their insurance, because they don't want to get canceled. And so when we're told, hey, this is the 4th time we've had structural flooding, or if we're looking at the FEMA map and those statistics, we don't see that because it wasn't reported. Okay, so last year we did a compilation list of all the areas that had structural flooding and reprioritized our stormwater plan. Okay, so it is something that is flexible to try to make sure that people don't have structural flooding. So just wanted to let you know that it is something that is literally being worked on every single day. And so thank you again to the stormwater team, city manager, staff that is working on that. And thank you to the city of Lynn Haven as citizens for being patient with us while we're trying to repair these issues and catch up on the maintenance. Okay. And so if you see some issues, please, bring that in. Thank you for all this data. Be sure to, take a look at it. I actually thought it was from Mr. Lightfoot. That's, when I saw it, because we have a stormwater thing coming up. So thank you for that. But please know that we're not ignoring your concerns. We're not ignoring anything that you're saying about stormwater, because we live in Lynn Haven. Okay. So what's impacting you? So please always remember this, whatever is impacting you impacts us, right? Because we live in Lynn Haven. So we're not living somewhere else and then flying in and having these meetings and making decisions that aren't impactful on us. It all impacts us too. So that is my report. I'll have something a little more fun next time about all the things I got a chance to do over these past couple of weeks. Commissioner Aldrich.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with all the sentiment that you just spoke about. We do all care about stormwater. We do all care about flooding, and we're trying our best to get a handle on it. One of the things, just speaking personally as a city leader, one of the things that weighs on my mind during these decisions
I'm sure you guys see the inflation reports coming out every single month, and I'm sure you saw August inflation reports up again. And I promise you, September's inflation report's going to be up. And so is October and November and December because we keep spending money in DC. So my thought is always for the elderly that are on fixed incomes, and balancing that out and balancing out the people that are working 2 jobs and still barely getting by. And it hits them hard. It hits them hard when they get a tax bill in and they're barely able to afford gas. So that is in the back of my mind, and having to balance, let's put a bunch of money in here, because I'm like most of you, I don't mind paying more. I don't. But I know a lot of people cannot handle that burden. So it's a balancing act, and it's one of the not fun parts of this job that we all have to deal with, is making decisions about those certain things. But other than that, I'm also going to keep it brief. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm looking forward to opening day on Saturday morning. It's going to be fun. No one's worried about taxes when kids are playing ball. So come out, watch kids play ball. You'll have a good time. And I pray everyone's doing well and having a great week. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Perno.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to miss opening day because I'm going to be playing in the Bay Education Foundation golf tournament at the Panama Country Club. Otherwise, I'd be there. I feel bad. It's the first one I'm going to miss. It's that since I've been a commissioner. But my heart's going to be there for sure. And I understand what you said about the ball fields, Mr. Kevin. And if there's anything we do, we're not done planning that, so we might need to be able to take a look at it, you know. So I'm just throwing it out there. And then, you know, off of what Mr. Scray said, you know, I'm not trying to hold back and tell people that we don't want to charge more. Like Mayor said, last year it seemed to be people didn't want to get charged, and then this year they're ready to pay more. But are we doing it fairly? Is impervious square footage the way to go? You know, that we need to look at that. I know we have I personally went outside and talked to the Stantec representative at our last meeting when they were there, and I said, "Is impervious square footage well? It's the gold standard, I was told. It's the way, but there's other ways of measuring this. I think there's more ways to skin a cat, and I think there might be a way to look at it in a more fair, more rounded way. So." With that being said, I just in defense of what I said, and I know what's going on right now with inflation and stuff. You know, people are hurting, and people did get hit hard with insurance adjustments on their escrow last year, you know, and so forth. A lot of house payments went up along with our assessment. So there's just we're not done looking at this. That's all I got. That's all I got to say to tell everybody. And with that, that's my report. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Perno. And to sort of follow back on that, so citizens will know, we will be meeting back with Stantec in the next 6 to 8 months. So they're bringing us a report back with some different ideas. I think it's 3 options that they want to bring back to us that we can look at in regards to making this assessment more fair and equitable for everyone. So we're not just waiting until next year, this time, to do that again. Yeah. We did ask, you know, within the next 6 to 8 months.
This a lot faster, I think.
Yeah. So
you'll know
that.
Go back to my report. I'm sorry, Mayor.
Yes.
9/11 Remembrance was amazing this past Saturday. I know it wasn't on 9/11. It was on 9/10. But if you weren't there in the park, it was quite an emotional thing. Commissioner Warwick and I sat next to Congressman Dunn, and of course everybody was there at the table. But there's just something about that time that we all remember. So with that, I didn't want to forget to thank our first responders, and police and fire, and all our city employees. Thank you.
Thank you for working that in. No. Commissioner Ward.
Commissioner Pernell just stole my thunder.
He does that sometimes.
Yeah, the 9/11 program, I really enjoyed it. So I appreciate our first responders for all that they do. First, I want to say I'm glad to see everyone here. I'm always glad to see the room packed and a lot of people here and a lot of people get involved in local government. I wish we see it at every meeting. So I appreciate you coming, and I appreciate your feedback. We hear you on the stormwater. That's one of the reasons I ran for office. So, with that, 24 September, I have my time with the commissioner. I'm gonna have it at 11:30 this time at Tacos Way. So anyone can come on out. If you just want to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about, the city, I'm all ears. Anyone will probably tell you I talk to just about anybody. So hope to see you out there. I attended First Friday. Chamber of Commerce does this thing First Friday. We all get invites to it, and I've been wanting to go to it for quite some time, and I was finally able to make it. And I was surprised to learn the amount of jobs that are coming into Bay County. There's a lot of manufacturing type industry jobs that are coming, which is, I think, great for our county. But one of the reasons I bring it up is while I was there, Griffiths was there, who is going to be our next state rep. And I've been wanting to talk to Congressman Griff for Mr. Griffiths for quite a while about home rule. You guys all heard me talk about home rule, giving more authority to municipalities. And I happened to see him walking out, and I ran up to him, and I had a couple-minute conversation with him, and I was glad to hear that he read my letter. And I know he read my letter because of some of the things that he stated. He goes, I agree with what you stated. I agree with home rule, that we should give more authority to municipalities. And I know you want to sit down and talk with me, and I will sit. He said that he would make some time for me. So I'm really looking forward to that, because I do feel a lot of things that we talk about, our hands are tied because the state dictates on what we can and can't do. So, we talk about all these developments. Well, stop the developments. Well, we're very limited on what we can do with that because of the state laws that are in place. So, I do have some comments on stormwater, but I'm going to wait until we get to the assessment part, if that's okay. Just want to provide a couple comments, but I did go out and multiple areas and see some things and talk with some people, and my heart goes out to you. I knew when that rain came down, I knew it was going to be a bad day, and all I could think about was someone's house is getting flooded. I knew it was going to happen. So, but I was glad the number is not as high as I thought it was going to be. I thought the number was going to be higher than that. So I'm thankful for that. But yeah, one house is too many. So anyways, that's my report. Thank you.
Commissioner Tender.
Thank you, Mayor. The last couple of weeks, I've been fairly busy, and I've been fielding a lot of the concerns and complaints that I'm getting from residents to the city manager, and we've been getting back to the folks that are concerned. I received one call about Rails to Trails, and I had to kind of giggle because we have been dealing with Rails to Trails since 2017 and before. But the city manager assured me that we were opening bids this last week. We're going to actually be voting on that tonight. And hopefully in the next, I think you said 6 or 8 months, we can get started on Rails to Trails. There are a lot of people looking forward to it. I also received video, and I think we all did, about Bel Air Estates. My heart goes out to them. They were totally underwater, it seemed like. But I also wanted to thank our code enforcement because I got a complaint from Bel Air Estates, and they said our code enforcement came out there and really cleaned things up. So that's always nice to know that we're making things happen. I also got an email from a gentleman regarding the ball field, and your numbers match his exactly, because that's exactly what he said about the size of the field. He was also a little bit concerned with the T-ball game starting at 7 and 7:15 on weeknights for the little tiny guys. I don't know if there's anything we can do about that, but if there is, we sure do. We need to try anyway to make it a good experience for them. My thanks goes out to Bobby's department for going over on 9th Street and cutting down, what was that they said? Some kind of growth that grows every year, and we have to cut it down every year anyway. They couldn't see, and I appreciate you going over and taking care of that right away. Bel Air, then the other, I received a call yesterday about a piece of property on Harvard and 390. And I guess the trees have all been mowed down on this piece of property. It's a vacant lot. And now the people behind it, and I feel like we have dealt with Briarwood before on a couple of flooding issues, but the lot itself has been cleared, and the people behind them flooded after that rainstorm. The interesting thing is the fact that the one lot that I'm talking about on Harvard and 390 is in the city limits of Lynn Haven, and everything behind them is in the county. So it leaves us in a very awkward position. And I'm always amazed that when you see those boundary lines, it goes like this. I mean, it's just all over the place. And it makes it really hard to deal with situations. But I did want to bring that up. Mowat, I think that's actually everything that I've dealt with in the last couple of weeks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. City Manager.
Okay, we have the warrant update.
Thank you.
Spring fall ball is Saturday, September 17th. Opening time, I think, is 9 o'clock. And hope to see you all there. It's one of our largest groups we've had since the storm. We had to build this program back up after the storm. We're almost at 400 kids. And that was not the case 3 years ago. Also, we're in basketball mode as well. We thought we were going to be slacking there. In basketball, we have over 160 kids. And so it tells you that the city of Lynn Haven is coming back. It's taken us a while to get there, but we're coming back. And we love to see kids very much involved in some of those sports as well. In terms of the baseball fields, Commission, if you remember, you two probably don't remember, but you had this discussion about the size of the field back, I think it was in 2019, 2020, and you decided that you would do a 300-foot field.
I asked for the bigger fields then. I remember doing that.
Yeah. 300-foot field. And it was simply because 2 reasons. We knew that every high school around us already had their ball fields. Secondly, we knew that we could partnership with maybe Panama City Beach and some of the other areas for the 13U Major Junior League for them to have tournaments there. And that was one of the reasons you stayed at the 300. So we were not trying to go and recruit big high school tournaments or larger tournaments. We were looking at the smaller, the Major Junior League more than anything, and that's the reason that's there. We are well underway in that project. And so I think, you know, that's a conversation to be had by commission. It means spending more money. But I definitely know you had this conversation and you decided you wanted to stay within a certain budget, okay? So just wanted to address that. And also, I'd just like to thank Public Works. I'd like to thank Chris Lightfoot and so many others. We were out in the rain Sunday, and we want our citizens to have the very best life, very best place to be. And so we are working hard. You know, we're trying to fix something that's been happening for the past 25 years in basically 2 years. You know, flooding has happened in the city of Lynn Haven for over 25 years. And now we're finally getting to where we can try to fix some of those things. And I know it won't happen overnight, but yes, our hearts go out, and I look at all of the areas that we still need to do work, and we're determined to get that finished. And so hopefully we'll have some good discussions at this commission meeting and find better ways. But I will like to thank all the city staff that were out Sunday, working hard and trying to make sure that we kept our citizens as dry as possible. That's my report. I'm going to keep it short, but I will say on Thursday, fall concert series starts, and I think it's Transit Soul. We surely invite you all to come out and be a part of that event. It's out in Sheffield Park. It starts at 6 o'clock.
And also, thank you, City Manager. Also, just want to thank the citizens who, you know, do what you can in your yards and various things and getting out there trying to help us with the stormwater. So thank you all for that as well. I know as I drive throughout, I see little ditches and canals that you all have sort of made to try to divert water in different directions, you know, keeping the ditches and things around your homes cleaned out. That's helpful. So just thank you for what you're also doing as well. It is a citywide effort. So thank you all for that. This time we have the report from the city attorney.
I have nothing to report. If you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Big agenda.
All right. Don't let him leave if you have any questions. Catch him before he gets out the door, because once he walks out, then he charges us for it again. So we're already paying for him to be here tonight. So if citizens have any questions, catch him before he leaves. I mean, we're paying for him to be here. So, just. All right. Consent agenda. Minutes from 8/23, regular meeting minutes, approval for RV extension request on 202 Harbor Point Drive through the end of June 2023. Approval for RV extension request on 1602 Rhode Island Avenue through October 2022. And approval to amend GOS Technology for 1 additional year for the information technology contract. Is everyone okay with the consent agenda?
Yes.
All right, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Ward, second. She beat you, man. Yeah. By Commissioner Tender. City Manager, if you'll call the vote.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. This time we'll be going to agenda item number 14, old business. This will be public hearing for the final reading of ordinance number 1139. Public hearing begins at 6:32 p.m. City Manager, if you would.
Okay. Ordinance number 1139, ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, amending the City of Lynn Haven Unified Land Development Code, adding section 4.01.04, appearance standards for non-residential primary structures, amending table 4.02.02, standards for building heights and setbacks, amending section 4.02.05, design standards for all commercial development, amending section 4.06.02, specifications for landscaping and vegetation, amending section 4.07.01, corridor overlay design standards, and amending table 5.03.07C1, standards for permanent signs, repealing all ordinances in conflict and providing for an effective date.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to read from the car first, and then we have a brief presentation. So this is the final reading public hearing for the proposed amendments to the Unified Land Development Code, appearance standards for non-residential primary structures. This ordinance proposes to amend certain sections of the Unified Land Development Code to add specific design standards for all non-residential structures. The design standards will not apply to buildings located within industrial parks. The City Commission have expressed a desire to amend the land development regulations to improve the aesthetics of non-residential structures and lots within the city. Over the past couple of years, there have been a series of workshops where the Commission have discussed possible amendments to the ULDC to improve the city's non-residential appearance. At the last main workshop presentation held on May 24, 2022, the Commission asked staff to draft an ordinance that would create the desired amendments to the code and bring the city up to the same standards as currently required for the community redevelopment area. The appearance standards section would bring new construction and redevelopment projects into compliance with Chapter 6 of the Storefront Design Guidelines adopted by the Community Redevelopment Agency. The other amended sections bring changes to signage, parking, and landscape sections. The amendments would implement changes in the areas of building materials, color selection, architectural details, signage, parking, and landscaping upkeep. This ordinance was presented to the Planning Commission on August 2nd for a recommendation. The Planning Commission failed to make a recommendation as a motion made by Mr. Dick failed for a lack of second. One of the board members stated he felt developers should be included in any new rule decision-making, and in particular did not like the proposed new rear setback recommendation. And the planning board minutes are included in your packet, and you will see that they did state, although they failed to make a motion, they did state that they would like the commission to have another look at the ordinance. They didn't like the broad changes, and although they agreed with the landscaping, maintenance, and having a mechanism in place to enforce the streetscapes, they felt like there should be some. The Planning Commission feels the requirement for storefronts to be built closer to the road to allow parking in the rear should be looked at, because that requirement could not be met with some parcels. So that is in the agenda report for the commission. So I just read it so that everybody would be aware of that. And this is just a brief presentation. So Ordinance 1139 would add section 4.0104 appearance standards for non-residential primary structures, amend table 4.0202 standards for building heights and setbacks, amend section 4.0205 design standards for all commercial development, amend section 4.06.02 specifications for landscaping and vegetation, amend section 4.0701 corridor overlay design standards, and amend table 5.03.07 standards for permanent signs. Appearance standards for non-residential primary structures, new construction and redevelopment projects would have to comply with Chapter 6 of the Storefront Design Guidelines, which were adopted by the Community Redevelopment Agency. New construction and redevelopment projects located within an industrial park do not have to comply with this section. In the table here, 4.02.02, you can see that the only change that is recommended is in commercial for the rear setback to change from 0 to 40. This was one of the things that the Planning Commission wasn't happy about. This was the main thing I think that they weren't happy about. Section 4.02.05, design standards for commercial development, is amended to remove this section, section D, because if we are going with the storefront CRA program, this is redundant. It doesn't need to be in this section. The changes to landscaping would require the following language: automatic irrigation systems shall be installed prior to the installation of plants, to make sure that when plants are installed, there is an irrigation system in place there to actually keep them alive. Section 4.07.00, standards for corridor overlay district. All of design standards will be removed. Currently, we have an overlay district for 77 and Highway 390. If these new standards are adopted, then the new standards are going to apply to all non-residential development. So the corridor overlay is going to go away, basically. So everything regarding design standards will be removed. The only sections that will not be removed are those that relate to seasonal sales, access management, prohibited uses, and transit facilities. All of the design elements will be taken out. And the table 5.03.07, standards for permanent signs, would be amended. So the only change here would be to reduce the current maximum height of 18 feet for signs, non-building signs, these are roadway signs, reduce the maximum height from 18 feet to 10 feet. And that's for all signs. No, it doesn't matter kind of how much frontage you have, because currently Currently, it's 18 feet for all frontage lengths, and it would go to 10 feet for all frontage lengths. And that's the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Of course, on Friday, we had a discussion about this. Friday before that, meeting before that, a few meetings before that. And I think in this past Friday's meeting, we did say that we wanted to, we had talked with Cole about it, move forward with the public hearing so that we could get input from the public on record as it related to this particular ordinance. However, of course, you know, we can change our minds. However, wanted some commissioners mentioned the possibility of maybe pushing back the voting on it from today, maybe setting another date for actually voting on it so that it'll be a continuation or an extension of the public hearing, and that we would not have to run the notices again because it's still, you know, within that. So that's what we sort of discussed Friday about this particular thing. Now, of course, we could change our minds and still vote on it today, but that's just sort of refreshing everybody about what we discussed on Friday about it.
Right. And I mean, obviously it depends on what you guys do today and how you want to vote, but that is certainly a possibility. I think there was some discussion about bringing it back to the planning board for another review before coming back to us. But yeah, to avoid having to re-advertise in the paper, we can have the public hearing, receive comment, and then just vote to continue that public hearing, as long as you pick a date certain and not just say,
Right.
you know, indefinitely. Pick a date, and that way it's on record today, and we'll re-adjourn or reconvene at that date. But give yourself enough time if you do want to go to planning board or have another workshop to fit all those events in before that date that you guys pick. But that would certainly be something you could do.
Miss Amanda, when is the next planning board meeting?
The next planning board meeting will be the 4th of October. 4th of October. So I've actually drafted an agenda that has that on there if you decide that you want to go ahead with that. And I've held off. I usually send it to the paper on a Wednesday, but I've held off and I'll send it to the paper in the morning if that's what you want to do.
Okay. So if we, again, we haven't decided anything yet. We're still going to let them hear. So if you all make a motion for us to extend it to a particular date, they'll be meeting on the 4th. Our next commission meeting after that would be October the 11th, or the evening meeting would be October 25th. So we'll just need to decide if we want to have it that morning or that evening. So it'll be October the 11th or the 25th after the next planning board meeting. So that'll give us time to hear back from them as well. So it'll just be between one of those two, October the 11th or 25th.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Okay, I wanted to ask this while we're on it, because I've kind of spearheaded this effort, and here's kind of the conclusion I've come to, because the only issue that I seem to keep running into, whether it's emails or calls or planning department or whoever it may be, is the 40-foot setback. So what I would like to see us do, and I don't know if I need to make the motion, I want to ask legal if we're going to have to go through the whole process again. I would like to remove the 40-foot setback. I think everybody's pretty good with everything else. The only other complaint I got was possibly safety because of the signs, but we review the signs. You assured me of that before. So no one can block the view of somebody trying to pull out of a lot if we deem it unsafe. They can't put a sign there. So I think that's a moot point. The 40-foot setback, the overall package is good. You know, it's kind of like Congress in DC, I guess. The overall thing is good. So, and I don't care that much about where the building sits, whether it's 40 feet or not. And I don't think anybody else really necessarily does either. But as long as we keep the rest in there and take out the 40-foot, if I make that motion, Kevin would.
Right. So it would not be a substantive change that would require re-advertisement. So I would think if you went more than that, I would lean the other way. But if you go anywhere between, obviously the existing language is 0.
Okay.
Yep. So anywhere between 0 and 40, you can make that motion tonight, and if it's seconded, and then then it's good to go.
Well, then I'd like to move that we remove the language for the 40-foot setback. The only thing that we're going to remove out of there, I'd like to send it back to the planning board and see if they can make a decision. That'd be nice. And then it can come back to us, and we can vote on it at that point. So that's my motion.
So can I just clarify then?
Let's clarify
So
that.
that would be to revert that 40-foot back to 0?
Just back to 0. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. Everything else would stay the same. That's the one thing we'd remove. I think that's the big hiccup.
But still not vote on the rest of it tonight. You still want to.
No, we'll just put the whole thing off.
Okay, well then,
send it back to the planning.
in that motion, if you would just pick a date, whether
Yeah.
it be
Okay.
October, would you say 11th or 25th?
Right.
Or, is
Let's do,
that right?
So
11th?
whether you want it the morning or the evening, that's all.
which one you guys want to do? I mean, we're bored.
25th.
Evening,
more people
25th?
can
Okay, then the
come.
25th. In the motion, we make it for the 25th of October.
To continue to the public
Continue-
hearing.
To continue the public hearing.
So is it the motion to send it back to the planning board?
To take the language out of the 40-foot setback and then
Okay.
send it to the planning board and see if they can make a decision. And then it can come back to us at the end of
And
next month.
continue the public hearing till the 25th.
I'll second that motion.
All right, motion second. At this time, we'll have comments from the public. All right. Motion by Commissioner Aldridge, second by Commissioner Ward. City Manager, if you'll call the vote.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. Public hearing closed at 6:46 PM.
Actually, public hearing continued until
I'm
October
sorry.
25th.
Public hearing continues until October 25th. So the clock just keeps running until then.
Mayor, can I publicly ask Amanda a question regarding the signs?
Yes.
I mean, we had the one issue on 77 of that sign. And to take it from 18 to 10, if you come out of a parking lot and that sign is solid for 10 feet up, you cannot see through that sign to pull out on Highway 77. And I don't know if we have any leeway there or whatever, but you won't be here forever. And when you're gone, if we just say, well, let's just leave it up to the planning department, I mean, can we put some verbiage in there that, I know we want the brick, we want everybody to look, have that brick look and all that, but if we make that height like 3 foot or 4 foot, whatever.
That sign, the stereo source sign, that sign was there already. And so
Yes.
what they were trying to do, it wasn't a new sign.
Right.
So what they were trying to do was replace the sign in such a way that it was going to block the site visibility. We do have language in our sign ordinance now that does not allow for the site visibility to be blocked. So what we did, because they were going to have that all solid, what happened was they had to resubmit a different design, and code enforcement and Vicky from my office went out, had a look, and they've left a gap now. So there is no solid block where you would look through if you were in a car. So it is not blocking the site visibility. Any new signs and any signs that were going to be changed out, if it were 10 feet, if it was blocking the site visibility, they would not have been able to just convert that sign. They would have had to have moved the sign.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Agenda item number 15. Public hearing opens at 6:48 PM. Discussion and possible approval of resolution number 2022-09-392.
Okay. Did you want to do the stormwater report first or the?
Yeah, you are on there for the stormwater report, aren't you? Yeah, Chris, Mr. Lightfoot, if you'll give us your report first.
So it's kind of good to see tonight. If we recall last year, we had this room standing room only and the next room standing room only for people against the assessment. So it's good to hear some people for the assessment. Makes us feel like we are doing our job right. So first I want to go through our monthly stormwater update that we do. And I apologize for the date being yesterday. I forgot our commission meeting was different today. So I wanted to use this presentation to run back through our master plan of what was approved by the commission in 2019, as well as the projects that we have added in the past year and a half, 2 years, and kind of go through those and give a status update of where we are. So the railroad ditch, we dug that out in 2021, and more work will continue with the Rails to Trails project now. Our Acme Lane project, we've received the HMGP and the DEO grant for the engineering portion. And all of these that say HMGP and DEO on those, as we've discussed, everything is finally approved, cleaning up the RFQ, and it will be out ASAP to get those engineering projects underway. Bel Air Estates, the master plan called for those lines to be videoed and cleaned with the back truck. We completed those. The DOT crossing has helped drain the area. Some of the rain events that we used to get, I mean, an inch of rain would bring the water up out of the ditch into the streets. That does not happen anymore. However, a rain event like we experienced Sunday, it still does. So we've got the James Rogers Park that will be being rebuilt in the near future, as well as looking at a possible stormwater pond at that park to help alleviate some of the flooding in that area. Bradley Circle was part of the HMGP DEO grants. Minnesota Avenue, same as Bel Air, we videoed those lines and cleaned with the back truck, and the railroad ditch has helped this area. However, it still has some more work to go. As part of the railroad ditch project, we will be putting a pipe. If you see the railroad ditch, you've got the south side and the north side section of it. And as part of this, we will put an equalization pipe basically in, which will help use that north side of the railroad ditch for extra storage. Currently, if you drive by during a rain event, the north side of that ditch is pretty dry, and the south side is just inundated with rainwater. So it will really help out by being able to utilize both sides of that ditch. Crystal Lane, the same thing. We cleaned it with the back truck and future improvements to be done. West 10th Street is a CDBG grant. It's actually one that's water, sewer, roadways, and stormwater. So it's a pretty big grant we received for that one. Virginia Avenue, we excavated and cleaned that area in 2021, and we have seen significant improvements in the area for stormwater. Another good help with that area will be a West Side Regional Stormwater Pond, which we'll talk about here in just a second. Georgia Avenue, we completed that in 2020 by Sykes Construction. Florida Avenue, same thing, completed per the master plan, video and cleaned it out with the back truck. Our 11th Street is another HMGP DEO project. 15th Street, we completed in 2021, and that portion is from Florida to the railroad ditch. As you recall, you all approved also an agreement with Mr. Grimsley with the Havenwood Apartments last year. He completed that portion. To my knowledge, no water got into any of those apartments during this rain event. I mean, it was all in the parking lot, of course, but there was none inside any apartment. So it has made a significant improvement there. And there's 2 other apartment complexes in that area. We've also been discussing with them some private projects that they will be doing that the owners will be funding. The one apartment complex wants to build a stormwater pond into a part of the parking lot that's not used. So that will be a huge help for them, and as well as completing the railroad ditch and getting both of those sides utilized there. Pennsylvania Avenue was again completed in 2020 by Sykes with the Georgia Avenue project. Wyoming Avenue is another one HMGP DEO funded. 7th Street is from Pennsylvania to Illinois Avenue. It is under contract right now by American Sand. We are waiting on the rest of the materials to get on site, as well as Florida Power and Light had to move a pole. They have moved the pole. Now we're waiting on them to connect to it, as well as Comcast and WOW. Soon as all 3 of those providers are connected, they can demo the old pole and get it out of the way for us. Colorado Avenue, a portion of that project was completed, and that was actually one of the first ones done with a half-cent money back in, I believe, 2017. But however, we will be putting in an additional pipe under Mississippi Avenue there to help with that. We've got the plans completed, and we anticipate to do that with some of our legislative appropriation that we've been working with. 24th Street, right now there was no available funding for it. It was denied by HMGP due to the cost-benefit ratio. Dundee Lane and Pine Forest Estates are another HMGP DEO funded projects. And Aberdeen and Mosley, currently no funding at this time. Same with 24th Street, just the cost to benefit ratio was not there for HMGP to approve it, but it is on our list for future grant opportunities when those come available. Indiana Avenue was recently completed. That did not solve all of the stormwater issues there, which we knew it would not. However, the Pine Forest Estates project, as well as another future project we are working on for the East Side Regional Pond, will significantly help that area. But now the water has a way to get out. As soon as it can recede, it flows out very quickly and keeps from backing up there. And the maintenance, it's ongoing with contractors and city staff. You all approved the ditch digging contract last year. It was amazing what we were able to dig of around 70,000 feet and make a significant difference in the ditches there, especially with normal rain. can't get my slides to save right here. Bobby and I went over this several times, and still couldn't get it right. Our outfall dredging, somebody earlier said, you know, the bayous were blocked, and that is very true. None of the bayous have ever been dredged to anyone's knowledge that we know of. So as you all recall, we received the $1 million legislative appropriation earlier this year, and we also are matching that with $1 million of the half-cent funding. And all of that has been approved by you all. It's in the budget. Dewberry is currently working on all of the surveys for it, and then we are getting it designed and then permitted, and we will go out to bid. It's a long process for this. Permitting for dredging and wetlands and bayou areas are very thorough, but we will continue to work on that. West Side outfall, I think every commissioner here has talked to a resident over there at 18th and New Hampshire, and that will help drain from 19th to 17th, and then from Maine to Maryland. So it's a pretty good chunk over there of the west side. However, there's only one home over there that has been flooded that has been reported to the city. Most of the water there is standing water in the road, standing water in the ditches. So this project, it is a ways out, but that is what we will be doing over there when we finally work our way over there. The West Side Regional Stormwater Pond, pursuing future grant funding opportunity. This will also help with the commercial corridor. So not every business has to construct a pond on a small parcel. Maybe the parcel isn't big enough for what they want to do, or there's just not enough room to do anything there. So we will hopefully have a regional pond that they can buy into and help alleviate flooding in the area as well. The East Side Regional Pond is actually moving a little quicker. Commissioner Perno has kind of been involved with this as well. We've been working with DEP. Years ago, I think it was in 1998 when they built Home Depot, they constructed a regional stormwater pond off of 17th Street. And there's 25 acres there owned by the Regency Group, which is a realty group. I believe they own the Public Shopping Center. They own the Home Depot Shopping Center. They are willing to move forward with giving that land to the city. And DEP is moving forward with doing the permitting, approving the permitting to get that regional stormwater pond there. So we will hopefully be bringing that to you all very soon with a preliminary plan. And it will be a regional stormwater pond on the east side there. It will help Pine Forest Estates, the 16 and 1700 blocks from Pennsylvania to Delaware all the way at the end, Mowat Highlands. So it will be a huge impact in that area. It will also be, you know, a passive park ordeal. It's not just dig a pond and leave it. They require you to do like a passive park, so have a walking trail or something through there for recreation, and really help with the stormwater there. Carolina Avenue, that's between 8th and 10th, and over there there's no flooding in a home. However, the water comes over the road during storms, so we'd like to increase the crossing under the road there, as well as raise the road so we can alleviate any issues. And though people can still get down 10th Street and can still get down 8th Street, we want to be able to have that connection in between. Again, though, that's a project that's far out just because it's not affecting structural flooding, but it is kind of a convenience project for traffic. So we bring this to you every month as well. And one thing I really want to point out is the difference, and I have given each commissioner 2 maps. One of them is this one, which is the fiscal year 2022 stormwater map. And every, purple or pink line there is what our contractor was able to dig. Every yellow line is what city staff dug. The orange shaded area, it got to be too convoluted to highlight where the vac truck had went. So I just kind of shaded in orange where the vac truck had been following in the big area up here, and then kind of highlighting in other places. And then the blue is improvements that have been done, including the Indiana Avenue project, the Havenwood project, and the Vermont Avenue project, anything that was completed in this fiscal year to help with an impact. But I wanted to bring the 2 maps to you tonight to show the difference in what has been done from fiscal year 21 with no non-ad valorem assessment to fiscal year 22 with the assessment. So if you see the fiscal year 21 map in front of you, and for any resident that wants to, it's on the website, and you can email me. I can give you a copy. I can print you a copy. I can print you a larger copy as well. But there's a significant difference here in what was dug last year versus what was dug this year. No, digging ditches is not going to fix 4.9 inches of rain in a couple hours, but it makes a huge difference just in the day-to-day and in the maintenance. Within several hours, a lot of the water had receded, and we'd like to accredit that to the ditch digging that has been completed. So I've also got you another few other handouts here that I brought you. The first one, this spreadsheet here that looks like this, is the HMGP list, all of the projects that we went over. It's got the name of the project, the description of the project, as well as the 75% portion and the 25% portion. If you remember, the 75% portion is paid through federal funding, and the city would have been responsible for the 25% match. However, the state decided to put out DEO money for that and has matched our 25% portion for these approved projects. So that's just a reminder of, what we do have budgeted. Though we aren't increasing the assessment this year, we are not going stagnant. We do have the 7 projects that we will be working on this fiscal year. So we will be continuing to move forward. We will also still have our same money in the budget for our ditch digging and our maintenance, and we will continue working on that. Before I get to questions, a couple other things I wanted to talk about here. I try to stay off of Facebook and the stormwater comments, but I figured today would be an interesting meeting, so I went through some of them to go through any concerns some people had. And I see a lot of questions on there about what are the non-ad valorem funds spent on. I see a lot of people say, we want to know what projects were spent on. Well, the non-ad valorem money does not just fund projects. It's not just for capital improvement. It's for the entire stormwater department. That includes, piping for failing culverts, materials needed, blocks to build inlets, grates for stormwater inlets that have failed, fuel for the trucks we use, fuel for the equipment we use, personnel, our training for the guys that go out and inspect the stormwater sites. So that non-ad valorem, it does not just fund projects. And if anybody ever wants to see, what it pays for, it's always in the budget. Last year it was page 52 of the budget. Fiscal year 23, it's page 72. And any other year before, which the non-ad valorem was first this year. So fiscal year 22 would be the first time you would ever see, what the non-ad valorem was spent on. But anybody that ever wants to see it, the budget is always online. You can look at the stormwater budget and know exactly what each line item is going towards. Another thing we talked about is, I see a lot of, new developments, they need to pay as well. They're not paying. And we do have an impact fee for stormwater. So all of the new developments that come in, they have to pay an impact fee. The impact fee can't just be used for maintenance. It has to be used for new projects and expansion. So it's not just, hey, we've got $200,000 in impact fees from this project. Let's go, buy a bunch of pipe or dig a bunch of ditches or do some maintenance. It's specific for certain things that is very specific to what you can do with that money. We went over where you can find the expenses for it. And I think the mayor said it well earlier, and Commissioner Aldridge. The goal of all of the staff and elected officials is to alleviate structural flooding. Water over the road is an inconvenience, but just know if anything happens, our police department is well outfitted with trucks. Our fire department is well outfitted with trucks. We're going to get to you. I mean, there's no flood that we've experienced that we cannot get to people and get them out in an emergency situation if that ever presents itself. Going to that, there's tons of communication between the county and FDOT. Unfortunately for us, a lot of our areas drain to county ditches, 12th Street, for example, DOT ditches, 14th Street, 390, and 77. So we could go dig out everything in our city, and DOT could leave some of theirs blocked, or the county could leave some of theirs blocked, and it wouldn't do us any good. So we are in constant contact with both entities, the county and DOT. They probably dread seeing any of us call, but during the rain events like Sunday, they do call us. They reach out to us, ask if there's any problems, if there's anything. So we are in constant contact with them and moving forward to help work together to solve any issues. the tide is a big hindrance to our stormwater system. The dredging we talked about earlier will help. I'd like to use West 7th Street as an example. If you go down to the end of West 7th, there's a little finger of the bayou there that is just silted up, and the dredging project will help that tremendously, get rid of the silt that's in that bayou. Up by the Garden Club is another one. Hopefully you've seen what our crews were able to do at the Garden Club is digging that ditches, and it was amazing how much water actually flows through that now. So with that being said, the bayous and the tide are a huge problem for us. I think Sunday the high tide was around noon, so we got all that rain. The tide was coming in, was not in our favor at all. But the afternoon when I rode back through here, and the tide going out, you could just, I mean, it was like turning pumps on, just pulling it right out. So it's a huge help for us. You all did approve the 100-year storm event design criteria for new developments this year. I was at the Public Works Conference a few weeks ago, and I went to a session about stormwater culvert replacement in Kentucky. And they were bragging and happy that they had upped their design from a 10-year event to a 25-year event. And Keith Bryant from Bay County was there, and we just kind of laughed at each other and like, 10-year event here happens to us every afternoon in the summer, so we can't do anything about it. So the 100-year event design standard is not common in other places. So that is really going to what we need to do as well as aiming for the future and getting to where we need to be for any future projects. Again, we hear a lot about flooding, but anytime your house or your business floods, please report it to us. Public Works, my email's on the website, Bobby's email's on the website, planning, anybody that you can get it to, report it to us, please. We need records of that flooding. It's really comes in handy when we're trying to adjust and go where we need to do and build our master plan or expand our master plan. So if your house ever gets water in it from stormwater, please reach out to us and let us know. But please keep in mind, we do realize there's water over the road everywhere. We're not saying that's not a concern, but our biggest concern is structural flooding. If anybody needs my card, you can have it. Like I said, all of our contact info is on the website, so just reach out to us.
Thank you for your update and addressing those concerns. I know last year when we had these sessions and workshops and voted on stormwater, one of the concerns was how this assessment would be used. Would it become a slush fund or whatever negative terminology people wanted to use about how government might misuse funds? However, I think the maps that you have provided and showed up there on the screen between fiscal year 22 stormwater maintenance and fiscal year 21 stormwater maintenance shows how we've been using that assessment fund and how if we only just waited on grant money, how we would be delayed, but it allowed us to have some working capital so that we could actually get some work done. And I do remember, there were some concerns about, do we need to have a stormwater oversight committee? And of course, I encouraged all of us that we are that oversight committee. And I remember going to meet with city manager to talk about having consistent updates and if I would need to make a report after meeting with Mr. Lightfoot about that. And so then that's when we begin implementing the monthly reports. And so we certainly appreciate you, making these monthly reports to us so that not only us as the commission can be updated and informed, but also our citizens can hear it publicly as it goes on record. So thank you for you and your department for just doing what you said you're going to do as it relates to working with stormwater. We know it's a daily grind of working with that. And so we're just, doing the best we can with what we have right now. So thank you for that. Any additional questions from the commission?
No, just, thank you for all the hard work you're doing. Glad to see you're still alive.
I have one quick question, if I could.
Yeah.
In Bel Air Estates at the Rogers Park, behind there where you're talking about putting in a pond, is that a wetland back there?
I'm sure there are some wetlands back there, but I haven't looked at a wetland map to know exactly what is. But I do know the park is pretty high and dry, and that would be where we would put a pond in if we put one there.
Okay.
Typically, we don't do this with our department reports. However, since we're going to be discussing stormwater assessment and talk with city manager about it, we would like to open the floor just momentarily if there are specific questions that the public may have for Mr. Lightfoot regarding stormwater.
I just have one, Johnny Bashir, they live in Louisiana Avenue. I just have one quick question. I noticed online, I saw a video during this storm event on Sunday of water backflowing out of the sanitary system out of a clean out. Obviously we're getting intrusion and it's going to be there. What are our current activities on intrusion of stormwater into the sanitary system?
So utilities has been doing a lot of the smoke testing. I believe they even budgeted some more that you approved tonight in the budget. A lot of that is, your yard gets underwater and your clean out is broke off. It inundates the sewer system, comes out at the lowest point in a manhole. So the smoke testing will make a huge difference in that correlation between stormwater and wastewater. And they were able to find a lot of issues there, and they will be working through the budget year on their end. Fixing any clean outs, fixing any manholes that were busted. They had a manhole on Minnesota Avenue in the ditch that when the ditch rose, it infiltrated the manhole. So they will continue working on that to help any I&I issues that they have from stormwater.
Any additional comments on that, Greg? Okay. Mr. Corey and then Mr. Scray.
Yeah, just I guess a couple things. One, feedback, and then the second part, I guess, is more of a question. Last year, before you all voted on this, there was made mention about a lot of the old infrastructure that we have in Lynn Haven, the pipe sizing, and those types of comments were made. And I really appreciate you bringing this map, and I spoke to this list that was handed out to Commissioner Warwick specifically. I guess my appetite, I don't know if residents also have the same appetite, but when we talk about pipe sizing and how all these things are out of date, and we passed this assessment last year, I guess there was some appetite, at least on my part, of, man, I really want to see some huge pipes. I want to see some, where is this significant improvement? And we see a lot of ditch digging, and I'm not saying that's not necessary, because it is. I know it's helped out, but I would love to see some huge concrete catches being installed. If we could see that stuff, I think that it would be a lot more palatable to the citizens and even get more support. And real quick, my question was over on 12th Street. I know you mentioned it was this county and city, and you guys work closely together on 12th Street between Louisiana, I believe it's Mississippi or Arkansas. That's been filled in, and there's underground piping, and it is not sufficient. There was actually 2 houses down the street that they had structural flooding. I don't know if it was reported or not. We really need to get the county out there to dig that back out. Thank you.
So with the big concrete pipes and everything, that's something that we put in Georgia Avenue and Pennsylvania Avenue. There's tons of them piled up right now at 7th and Illinois as they come in, waiting to get the project underway. We did some in Indiana Avenue. We had 8-inch stormwater pipes under some of the driveway crossings. We upped that to 14 by 23 elliptical RCP, which is the concrete piping. So every one of the new projects that we do, we do the larger concrete pipes, and every one of the projects that are on this list will be upsized. That was the major synopsis in most of them, is to upsize. 11th Street, for example, is going from, I believe, a 42-inch to a 54-inch. So it's a significant increase in the piping that's going in. And any of the new driveway crossings that we do, a lot of it was the old tar-coated corrugated metal pipe that, after a few, it was the latest and greatest thing at the time, but after a few years it started to degrade pretty bad. And so we're changing that out with ADS, the plastic pipe, to last significantly longer. However, you can't upsize every pipe, whether it's a driveway culvert or a ditch that's been piped in. If you only have so much ground cover, you can't make it go from a 12-inch pipe to a 24-inch pipe and get your adequate ground cover. So not all of them can be upsized. However, the significant projects that we are doing to alleviate structural flooding will have larger pipes, larger inlets, etc.
So Chris, are you saying that those are specific projects that where we do put in larger piping? That's where we really focus those at?
Absolutely. All of the HMGP, all of the projects that were built, the master plan was built around, was based on structural flooding. They took all of the flood maps from the time prior to putting the master plan together, and that's when they ran the model on it. There were several firms involved with that, and they built that, and knowing, hey, there's 18-inch pipes on the road now, we need to go to a 30, or we need to go to a 24, or whatever it was that the model, when they plugged it in, showed that it was. That is what we will be constructing with these grants.
Thank you. Mr. Scray?
So one of the projects you talked about was the area around 19th-ish in New Hampshire, right? And trying to get all that water out of there. I'm familiar with it. It's less than a half mile from my house. So all of that water, once that project's completed, is it going to go to that creek that runs out to the bay between Carolina and Missouri-ish? Where's that water going?
So the intent of that is to put the outfall at the end of 19th Street here. There's already an outfall here, and we will increase the size of the piping going down 19th Street to flow out to this outfall here that flows out to the bayou.
Okay, so you won't, all that water that's here on,
No,
it
the
won't
water
go to the
already
creek?
naturally flows west this way, so we will continue going that way.
Okay, because my primary concern is with that bridge that's on 17th. Obviously, it's pretty, I'm pretty familiar with it because my house is a block away. Every time it rains more than a couple inches, there's a manhole that constantly pumps sewage into that creek.
Again, that relates back to the smoke testing that utilities is doing.
Right.
To help alleviate any of the I&I over in that area, to help with the sewer overflows.
Okay, is it a possibility that that bridge is just too low?
The bridge has nothing to do with the sewer there.
Like the sewage pipe goes under it and it's below the water line? No. Okay. I just, I'm tired of smelling sewage going into the creek.
All right. Thank you. Additional questions from the public for stormwater? All right. Thank you, Mr. Lightfoot, for your very detailed and informed stormwater update. At this time, we will have the reading of this resolution.
Open public hearing on that. Public hearing.
I already started the public hearing. Do I need to start it again?
All right.
Well,
Keep
let me-
going. Let's go.
All right.
I didn't hear you say that.
Public hearing. So, Ms. Cecilia, if you would update from what I said previously, so if you would strike that, so we're going to start the public hearing now.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, providing the fiscal year 2022-2023 non-ad valorem assessment role for stormwater-related services, facilities, and programs, directing certification of assessment role and collection pursuant to the Uniform Assessment Collection Act, confirming notice and imposing and levying stormwater service assessments, providing directions and providing an effective date.
So that's at 7:17 p.m. when we started that. Thank you. Thank you, City Manager. City Attorney.
Yeah, sure. As you all know, in January of 2021, we really formally started the process of putting a stormwater non-ad valorem assessment and making that a reality with Ordinance 1102. We implemented that last year in the 2021-22 budget. So this resolution before you today is the annual assessment resolution for fiscal year 2022-2023 relating to the funding and delivery of stormwater services in the city, and provides for stormwater assessments within the entire area of the city for this year. This will adopt the final assessment roll for stormwater assessments and direct delivery of that roll to the tax collector, which is due September 15th. So that'll be hand delivered tomorrow. The rates and methodology were prepared by our consultant, Stantec. And as we've discussed, there are no rate increases in this annual resolution.
Thank you. Any discussion from the public? From the commission?
I just wanted to make a comment about some of the stormwater stuff that I didn't make earlier, if that's all right. And I don't want residents to think I'm making up excuses or anything. I know the city has a responsibility to do, and there are definitely some areas that we need to do better at, but I think there's a lot of things that we have accomplished. One of the things I just want to mention, I just kind of want to paint a picture for you, if I could, but I've called a lot of different cities on some research I'm doing, and I was surprised to find out that Lynn Haven's not the only ones having this problem. I was surprised. I thought, this area was the main one it's having, and it's not. And again, I'm not making excuses. But the other thing I want everyone, residents to understand is what our debt used to look like and what it looks like now. Back in fiscal year 14, the city had just under $2.9 million of debt. In fiscal year 15, we had 7.6 million. Fiscal year 16, we had 10.9 million. Fiscal year 17, 23.7 million. And fiscal year 18, right before Hurricane Michael came, $37.8 million of debt. And then, of course, after that, we took a disaster recovery bond. And I'm not counting that. The reason I say that is because all of it, most or if not all of it, is going to be covered by FEMA reimbursement. There's a portion of it that's kind of up in the air because obviously just look on the news of what's going on with Lynn Haven and the federal indictment and that. But if you look at today, we are at just under $24.2 million of debt if you don't count the disaster recovery bond. We've gone down quite a bit on the debt. And so from fiscal year 14, fiscal year 18, you're talking just under 35 million of debt that the city has accumulated. And I know a lot of residents are frustrated and upset, and I'm with you. I am too, because I see that, and it's like, what were the priorities back then? And I'm sure there's a story on some of these that they needed the money, but gosh, I thought stormwater would either be on the top of the list or near the top of the list. What could we have done with, let's say not 35 million, just 20 million of that money? What could you do with that $20 million, Chris? And so those are the cards that were dealt when I came on the commission. A lot of us came on the commission. And I just want residents to understand that. I know the city, I ask the city a lot of questions. Vicki will tell you, I ask her a lot of questions. And I can be a pain in the neck sometimes. But I will tell you, what are you laughing about? But I will tell you, the city is working very hard on the money that we have. They have had to make, the city and us have had to make some very hard decisions to get us in the position that we're in. And I know Kiki, I don't know if she's still here, but she worked hard to get me the list for all the city debt, which is not required with a budget, but I think it's a good time to look at the city debt when it comes to budget time. And I actually was surprised that it was down to 24.2. I was really happy. So I think that's all I wanted to say, but I just kind of want to paint that picture for residents to kind of understand why we're in the position, some of the reasons why we're in the position that we're in today. So that was all I want to say.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. And you're right, and not even just looking locally with surrounding cities or counties, we're certainly not the only ones dealing with stormwater. I guess the news would think that we are the only ones dealing with it, but we're not the only ones dealing with it. However, unknowing to a lot of people, we're one of the few cities that has a plan for it. So although we're not the only ones dealing with it, we're one of those few cities that's proactively addressing it with the plan. I've had citizens from other cities call and say, hey, can you talk to our commissioners, mayor, about the plan that you all have developed so that they can get a plan for our stormwater that are in those areas as well. So I think we're also setting a precedence on, how to try to be more proactive. And no plan is perfect. Although we can do everything we can to make the changes with stormwater, we can dig out our ditches, we can put in the bigger pipes. I hate to say it, we really don't know if it works until it rains, right? I mean, that's how we know, when it really works. And so, and then we pray that it doesn't rain so we don't have to see whether or not it works. But I think, we are doing, as you mentioned, just the focus that, I know during the campaign, because you and I came in at the same time, that we we did talk about stormwater and infrastructure and other things, but it was really more, hey, what's the budget? What's the debt of the city? But again, I think after that August meeting, having that hour and a half public commentary with people talking about stormwater, and I know for me having mothers calling me about not being able to, give their babies milk because their houses had flooded, that jars you, and so you want to go in and do something about that. But in many ways, our hands are tied. But we're doing what we can as fast as we can with the hands that have been dealt to us. So,
But I remember Commissioner Perno said something. I can't remember the stat. You said something about 65 of 66 municipalities or counties.
Lynn Haven's 20th in elevation in the state of all of 67 counties. That's our rank. But our low-lying areas are 65th out of 67 counties. So
Yeah.
we're a median, elevation, but our low-lying areas are some of the lowest in the state.
yeah. All right. Any other commentary from the commission? The discussion on this. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
We just discussed. All right. So we have a motion from Commissioner Aldridge, second from Commissioner Ward. Any additional discussion?
Well, for my part, again, I'm just, if we wanted to go up, I'm happy with going up, but I'm looking at the future economy, I guess. And again, in my business, I'm already seeing it soften, and I'm just worried it's going to hurt people. That's where I'm coming from on it. If we raise it, it's going to hurt people.
And I kind of feel the same way. It's a balance. It's hard because you want to take care of, have quality service, to take care of the residents, but we don't want to break their bank either.
Right.
I appreciate your second for discussion, so we can let this sentiment be known. I feel like we need to really look at how we're calculating the assessment. There's other methods out there. There's other ways that we might be able to find that would satisfy our city a little better than what we're doing.
Well, yeah, I agree, Commissioner. I do. I just don't know that we have the time in this fiscal year to fix that.
I don't think we do, but I think we can get really working fast on lining it up and let our people know that we're looking at something that we can get right into the pipeline now, so we can have the questions answered when it does come into play, and explain the new game plan and give people plenty of time to know it's coming. We didn't exactly, sound the trumpets the last time, and that's why we had so many people here a year ago. So this way we might be able to take a look at, how we can draw this up differently and be more fair and equitable and possibly gain more funding. So.
And I agree 100%. I do think our system, I've had some residents.
Because I think right now the cry is for the funding.
Yep.
And last year it was new and strange, and the devil is better than the devil you don't. So we're possibly gonna go back to the drawing board on this as far as how it's assessed. So.
No, I agree 100%. I definitely think there's issues here, but also it's either we put nothing in it and try to fix something, because we're down to 2 weeks now.
No. Well, if we do, we're going into the plan. We're doing more of the same, where people are going to complain and say, "Hey, I'm a tier 2. I should be a tier 1. I'm this. I'm that." I just don't think we're doing this the most clear-cut way we should. So.
And just to interject, there are other methodologies. I've talked to the city manager about that. I think we're going to meet pretty shortly right after the budget's done. And another thing, a special assessment, the deadline is actually September 15th. So it's tomorrow. And there's nothing that says we have to wait till the last minute to do this. A lot of that's driven by the reports that we get and our meetings and the consultants and stuff like that. So that's certainly something we can jump on. And if you want to change your methodology, we could change it effective next year, but we, again, don't have to wait until September to do it.
Well, we should just hit the grindstone to try to figure out if there's another way to do it.
Well, and I think that's part of what we directed Stantec to do.
Yes.
Is that whenever they come back within the next,
Yeah, let's hope they have something for us. But when I talked to them before, they said it was the gold standard, the impervious plan. So,
well, and I think what they mentioned, because we did bring that up, are there different ways that there are different methodologies, but that's the most, as you mentioned, hey, that's the gold standard per se for what cities may normally do that they've worked with in the past. However, they're supposed to bring back 3 options for us to look at, as it relates to, how can we employ this assessment. So we're going to, look at our calendar, get with city manager so she can coordinate with Stantec and have a workshop where Stantec does come back and say, okay, hey, here are, different methodologies that you can use to make that assessment, and maybe going back to billing, maybe going, continue to do the assessment, different ways to look at the vacant lots. And so, because we did have a very detailed discussion during our last previous city commission meeting that was at the Garden Center. I believe that was the first meeting in August where we had, good detailed instruction with them about that. So they will be bringing back some different, at least 3 options for us to consider. And we sort of projected it out over the next 6 to 8 months to give them time to go out and find that information and then bring it back so that we can be ahead of the game and not necessarily right before, but, give us a chance to really look at it, discuss it, go back to the drawing board if we need to, so that we can make a good decision about it. And, a lot of times it doesn't seem as if $100 or $200 is a lot for someone else. It's probably not a lot for me. I probably wasted on a lot of stuff. So, stormwater assessment going up $100, $200 may not be a lot. But for some of you, as, I'm sure all of us as commissioners have received phone calls, especially from my elderly, who are living on $700, $800 a month, Social Security, SSI, and they're calling like, hey, I can't afford this. And so it is tough, hearing that. However, we do have to sort of balance things out. But I think Stantec, along with city manager and staff, are going to bring back some good, information for us to so we can, make good decisions. And also our citizens have made a lot of good comments as well. So we have a lot to, since we've done this for a year now, we have a lot that we can look at and just really make good decisions about with the information that we have. So,
Mayor?
Yes.
If I could just add, I agreed with what Mrs. Mishler said earlier. The whole tier situation has got to be fixed. It's got to be corrected. And when we first started this whole thing, the biggest and the most complaints that I got were from the people who had vacant lots. Oh my gosh. I mean, every day I heard about the whole vacant lot situation. So, I mean, we have to, I agree with what you're saying, Commissioner Perno. We've got to find a better solution on how to do this so that it's fair, to our residents.
Mayor?
Yes.
And I have talked to Stantec as Kevin and I talked about some other methodologies. And with those methodologies, they've done in other larger cities where they've gone, say for instance, we have 9,000 properties. They've gone property by property, circle those properties, and actually figure out their impervious area. Now, that comes with a price tag because now you're taking every single property and it's going to be exact. And so there are some there. As Commissioner Perno said, that was probably the most standard way that it was calculated. And after this meeting, Kevin and I have already set up a couple of ideas we have, and also talking with Stantec and maybe some other consultants about other dates. But just so you know, the more accurate we want to be, the more we as a city and the commission, you will have to make sure that we have money to really do it well. And I think our residents are worth that. I think that it is much worth us doing it exact. Because going through 9,000 properties and doing each one of them that is a lot of time and effort.
I think since we're the first city to do it, if any other cities decide to do it, they should pay us some money since we worked all the bugs out for them.
That's right.
I think you should.
When you mentioned the monetary part of that, what we need to, since we have not made the final approval of the budget, what we need to add any additional funds to the budget in order to cover that? Is that something that would be covered?
I don't think so. And, I know you like to look at Panama City and Panama City Beach. Panama City is more recent. Panama City Beach has had a stormwater assessment for a few years, and they both use different methodologies. But one of the ways to, as far as covering the administrative end of it and the studies and getting it implemented, is it all gets lumped into that assessment. So you might have, 99.5% of it is for your stormwater projects. There might be a $4 for administrative on your thing. So, I mean, there's ways to cover that where the city is still made whole.
So we just tell them charge it to the gang. Okay. All right. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Commissioner Aldridge, Commissioner Ward, we've already had public discussion. We've had commissioner discussion. City manager, we've already had public discussion on it. We've already discussed it before the motion. City manager, if you call the vote.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. Public hearing closed at 7:36 p.m. I think that's our last public hearing of the night. Is that the last one?
Yeah, the next one's public as well.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm trying to keep up with them. Number 16, public hearing, open at 7:36 p.m. City manager.
Resolution number 2022-09-39393, a resolution of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, relating to the delivery of nuisance abatement related services within the city, providing for nuisance abatement with the city municipal boundaries, is estimating the service cost to provide nuisance abatement related services and programs, establishing the method of assessing the nuisance abatement related service costs against real property specifically benefited, directing the city manager to prepare a preliminary nuisance abatement assessment roll, establishing a public hearing to consider imposition of the proposed nuisance abatement assessment, directing the provisions of the notice in connection herewith, and providing an effective date.
Thank you.
Okay, and
City attorney.
Sure. This is our final assessment resolution for the four nuisance abatement clean-in liens, if you will, that we did last year. And you'll see, since these actually change every year, unlike the stormwater where it's on every parcel, these are just specific per year. So we do an initial resolution, which we did last month or the end of July, and this is the final resolution for those four properties listed in your packet. The total of all four properties is $48,342.39, which will be assessed, per property and go on their tax bill if that lien is not paid prior to November 1st.
Thank you. Any discussion from the public? Yes, ma'am. If you could come up and say your name and state your address.
Betty Ford, 1017 Michigan Avenue.
Thank you.
I received a letter. Okay. I have been trying to tell everyone in the city, Florida rebuild was to redo my house. It got tore up. And nobody would listen to me. I went 3 times with a letter. Nobody would see me. Phone calls were not answered. And now, y'all are wanting me to pay for tearing my house down. Well, rebuild was gonna do that free, plus furnish me a storage unit, cause I lost everything in my house, nowhere to put it. And I don't think that's right.
Do you have any specific questions, ma'am?
And I don't understand what the other was for, because y'all have never come into my yard and had to remove anything except the house.
If I recall, city attorney help me, or city manager, if I recall, this was actually started in the CRA. We actually dealt with this through the CRA, if I remember.
They funded the demolition
Yeah.
of their budget.
And I think we actually gave various extensions to try to make sure that there was something under work in regards to trying to really bring the property up to code from, if I can remember, because this was last year. And so my memory's a little foggy on that, but I do remember it was a morning meeting. You came in and we talked about 2 or 3 properties. And there were some of your neighbors that came in that were for us, moving forward with demoing the property, just because of some of the, I guess the infestation that was within the property, just so the nuisance that it became from a health perspective, if I'm remembering that right. But I do remember, us having extensive conversation about it as a commission, and I think trying to extend as much time and grace as we could on good faith that there was documentation showing that something was moving forward and actually trying to resolve that issue. So, Mr. Janke, you have any more input for us on that? Yeah.
The CRA worked on 3 projects total, and one of them was This is better. One of them was Mrs. Ford's residence at 1017 Michigan Avenue.
Yeah.
This whole case was started by the city's code enforcement department several months or years ago, after Hurricane Michael. And at some point in 2021, the CRA got involved in this since we would be able to provide some funding for demolishing some dilapidated homes within the CRA. And that's the reason why I got involved in this demolition project. So it was, the project was completed earlier this year, and the expenditures were added to the property as a lien. Is that correct? And and that's where we're at today.
Right. Yeah. And this one took longer than others. We actually had to we went and got a court order to do the demolition. And so as far as the length of time before we got to the point of actually tearing it down, it was longer than any other that we've done, certainly that I've seen, and certainly in the city. So there was years before we got to the point of getting the authority to go out there and actually do the demolition. We use the CRA funds to do the demolition, place the lien on the property, and that's where it sits now. The lien has not been paid, and so we're choosing to put it on the tax bill in November.
Okay.
I had a meeting with Judge Smiley, January the 18th. Ben was there, code enforcement. I told every one of them, I said, Florida rebuild is going to tear my house down. It wouldn't cost them anything. And then even code enforcement came over and said, we thought you were just saying that. I said, go home. And he did and found out that I wasn't lying. So I feel like I should be responsible when I lost more than that by everything in the house. By not having, they were gonna furnish me a storage pod.
Got it. And maybe there's a reimbursement procedure with Florida Rebuild. I'm not sure that'd be something. Maybe there's a reimbursement process with Florida Rebuild. I'm not sure. So you might follow back up with them on that.
I think part of the problem was that we started this project back way in 2021, and we kept asking for some type of documentation.
It was 2019 when we
Huh?
started. 2019, I believe it started with the code
2019,
enforcement
I
case.
can't remember, it's been so long ago. And we went through several of these. And finally, we still did not, we never got any documentation. And we actually did go through Judge Smiley's office. And I don't know if then is where any documentation was asked, then even there, no. It was demolished. It was a health and safety risk. And, from there, it's been sitting there.
Right. Yeah, we got a court order from Judge Smiley authorizing this. I think even then it was another 30 days before we did anything.
All right. But for additional questions, we can follow up after the meeting, okay? If you have additional questions, we can follow up after the meeting. All right. Thank you. Additional public commentary? All right. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ward, second by Commissioner Aldridge. City Manager, if you call the vote.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. Closed public hearing at 7:45 p.m. Agenda item number 17, discussion of possible approval of settlement and general release executed regarding termination of paymentus service agreement. City Attorney.
Yeah, and Kiki might jump in here. I just want to give her credit. This is an issue that I think nobody on staff really knew about. It happened in July of 2020. There was a pre-existing agreement with Paymentus, who is really our online payment provider for paying by credit card on the website or over the phone when you're paying your utility bills. When the city changed its accounting software back in July of 2020 or prior to that, they had a better system in place that was apparently better for the customers, better for the city, better for our accounting software. And so they gradually stopped using Paymentus. When they finally went forward with trying to get really a formal termination of that Paymentus agreement, we were informed by them that actually they were supposed to be the exclusive provider, and they had a contract and it automatically renewed, and it really wasn't going to be up until December of this year. And they sent us a demand for a lot of money. And Kiki did a really good job negotiating it way down to where I know it's a lot of money still, but it's way less than what they were asking for. And we didn't have to, and it's a mutual release. Everybody's happy and terminated, and we've got a better system in place now. And we'll be done with this contract.
Are you going to share any of your fees with her?
I let her handle it. That she did the correspondence and the letters, and that was it. So.
All right, awesome. Are there any questions for Ms. Kiki regarding this? I know we talked about this in Friday's meeting. Okay, is there a motion for this?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Ward, second by Commissioner Perno. Any public discussion? No public discussion. City Manager, if you call the vote.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. Agenda item number 18, first reading of ordinance number 1140, application for annexation, parcel number 11537-020-000, Highway 389, Preston Ray Homes. First reading by title only, please.
Yes, an ordinance of annexing into the municipal limits of the city of Lynn Haven, Florida, certain contiguous compact unincorporated land located in Bay County, Florida, for an approximate 4.59 plus acres of property, parcel number 11537-020-000, as is more particularly described herein pursuant to Florida statutes, Section 171044, land repealing all ordinances of parts of ordinances, and here conflict and reciting an effective date.
Thank you. Any questions about this one?
Is this the one I can ask the developer a question?
Yes, if you would come up, please. Thank you for being here tonight and waiting on us.
You get overtime pay for coming here?
Fortunately, no.
I see.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Short, Dewberry. I'm the representative for the developer. He is here as well, but
Okay.
I'm speaking on his behalf.
The only question I have is, we've been getting quite a few, the voluntary annexation from the county to Lynn Haven,
Sure.
which is good, because when you look at our map, we got all these whole pockets in here where they're totally surrounded by Lynn Haven. And I was just curious why you guys wanted to annex in, because I think it's a great thing, and just want to know if there was a reason why.
In this particular case with this property, it is adjacent to the right-of-way for Cason Drive, the western portion of Cason Drive from Andrews Plantation Phase 2. And with its location in proximity to Cason Drive, we were just hoping, the adjacent infrastructure would make sense to use rather than using the infrastructure on 389, and just consistency with the general setup of the land use and zoning for Andrews Plantation as well. So that's kind of the reasoning behind it.
So it makes it easier for you guys to be in Lynn Haven as a county?
Correct.
Because of those? I was
Correct.
hoping you could say, because Lynn Haven's a great
Well,
city.
and it's just a great place to be.
All right.
And we got some people working very, very hard on some stormwater issues.
All right, thanks, appreciate it.
Yep. Any other questions?
Any additional questions for the developer? Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any additional questions on agenda item number 18? All right, agenda item number 19, first reading of ordinance number 1141, application for future land use map amendment, parcel number 11537-020-000, Bay County Residential to City of Lynn Haven, low density residential, first reading by title only, please.
An ordinance providing for the adoption pursuant to Chapter 163 Florida statutes of a land use change from Bay County Residential to City of Lynn Haven low-density residential for approximate 4.59 plus or minus acres property located at 4231 Highway 389 in the City of Lynn Haven, Bay County, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. And of course, this ordinance is in coordination with the previous ordinance. Agenda item number 20, first reading of ordinance number 1142, application for annexation, parcel number 11352-010-000, East Highway 390, Southern Coastal Homes, first reading by title only, please.
An ordinance of annexing into the municipal limits of City of Lynn Haven, Florida, certain contiguous, compact, unincorporated land located in Bay County, Florida, for an approximate 9.29 plus acres or minus acres of property, parcel number 11352-010-000, as is more particularly described herein, pursuant to Florida statute section 171.044, amending the boundaries of the city to include in said land, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and reciting an effective date.
Thank you. Any discussion on this one? Did we ask this developer to be here also? Or was that just the
Yeah,
other
it's the
one?
same person, or? Same question, sir.
Well, first and foremost, Chris Short, Dewberry, first and foremost, just to be in the City of Lynn Haven, I mean, like you mentioned earlier. No, in this particular case, it also makes sense logistically to annex into the City of Lynn Haven with the way that this particular property kind of keys in and fits in with the meadows around it. All the drainage and everything on the property and the existing condition is kind of interrelated very closely with the meadows. So with that kind of overlap and potential infrastructure, it makes sense to annex into the city.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for developer Dewberry? All right. Thank you. Any further discussion on that? No? Great. Agenda item number 21, first reading of ordinance number 1143, application for future land use map amendment, parcel number 11352-010-000, Bay County Residential, the City of Lynn Haven, low density residential, first reading by title only, please.
An ordinance providing for the adoption pursuant to Chapter 163 Florida statutes of a land use change from Bay County Residential to City of Lynn Haven low-density residential for an approximate 9.29 plus or minus acres of property located at 3649 Highway 390 in the City of Lynn Haven, Bay County, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith and providing an effective date.
Thank you. Again, agenda item number 21 is in coordination with agenda item number 20. Now we're down to agenda item number 22. Mr. Bobby Baker, Chief Infrastructure. Okay, so, all right, who's coming up? Ben's coming up. Okay. So agenda item number 22, discussion and possible approval to award bid for Rails to Trails multi-use path to Roberts Incorporated for the lowest bidding amount of $4.3 million. And it makes sense though, because I was wondering why the Chief Infrastructure Director was on here for the Rails to Trails, but you know. Got it. Well, thanks for being here so we can get the right answers for this. Because Mr. Baker had us all confused on that PowerPoint earlier.
So Rails to Trails, we all know this is a project that will result in a 12-foot wide trail constructed within the existing abandoned railway between Highway 390 and 231. DOT approved funding of about 94% of this of the project cost. The remaining balance will be paid for with the city's multimodal mobility fee pending available funding. On August 30th of this year, the city received 2 bids from qualified contractors for the construction of this project. Roberts was the lowest responsive bidder and is recommended by city staff to be awarded this project. The project's proposed funding will result in DOT Sun Trail grant funding, and that amount is $4,047,020.57. And then the Lynn Haven multimodal mobility fee, that portion would be $273,438.12. So at this point, city staff would request consideration of the approval of the lowest responsive bidder as presented.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mrs. Yankee? I knew Commissioner Tender had a question.
I don't really have a question, but I definitely have a concern. And I don't mean to be facetious when I ask this, but what could cost $377,000 for mobilization of their equipment for Roberts? I mean, that is an ungodly price to me.
There could be multiple line items that Roberts decided to list under that budget item. It could be survey work. It could be some insurance bond and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And actually, am I correct? I'm not a numbers person, but we're looking at about a $40,000 difference in these two companies.
No, I think the second bidder was significantly more.
Okay. I know the mobility fee for the other company, what is it? GCUC is only $237. That's $150,000 difference.
The total.
Well, I know we're looking at totals.
This is the total of about $676,000 difference between the two.
Okay. Well, I had to ask because I feel like that's a huge mobilization fee. And I also, just for the record, take it or leave it, just for the record, these people are the folks that bought out GAC.
No.
They're not.
No.
That was CW.
CW.
A different Roberts, same family, just a different name.
Totally different.
Yeah, different name.
They got mad a long
Anyway.
time ago and split up.
I know. It's like Tinder and Tinder, or Tinder and Tinder LLC, or, you know, whatever. Anyway, I just wanted that on the record.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Moved to approve by Commissioner Aldridge, second by Commissioner Warwick. Any discussion from the public?
This is
For the
construction.
engineering was $265,000.
No, for the original budget was 4.3. Yeah.
City Manager, if you call the vote, please.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
I gotta say no, sorry.
Commissioner Perna,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Mayor Nelson.
I'm trying to wait till 8 o'clock.
Set a record.
Yes, motion passed, meeting adjourned. Thank you all for hanging out with us all afternoon.